Oh no! Thank you for. Alright, so memo to self, when I post this on YouTube, start from roughly here. I feel silly. Thank you so much. I'm glad you tuned in. I have no idea how long it might have taken me to realize that my mic was muted. If you hadn't told me. Thank you. Goodness gracious. But yeah, I was just saying I like this shirt. I'm not sure if I've ever worn it on stream before, but it's got stars on it, and I think it's kind of fun with the way this filter blurs things. It's like extra bonus starry pattern. And that's what I was commenting on before. Alright, so welcome to being the background of my workday. Fair enough. I hope it'll be pleasant. It's a visual novel, so I'll just be reading the dialogue out. So, and I like to think I have, a decent reading voice. So, I'm not going to be going making audiobooks anytime soon, but like, I like to think that it can be a pleasant background cadence. I've never seen it, but it is pretty awesome. My shirt, yeah. Yes, thank you. Alright. So, also, absolutely, if at any point, since I do not think that you've seen, or I don't know if you've gone back and watched any of the previous stuff, but if at any point you have questions, like if you're following the story, like this is chapter 7 of a visual novel, so, like, absolutely, if you have any questions, you're curious what's going on, let me know. The very brief overview is our main character, Lucette. She's the daughter, or she is the crown princess of the land in this fantasy world where I have no idea what's going on. Yep, alright. Well, here's my recap. So, but it's okay because I'm for real also working. Yeah, fair enough. I'm gonna do the recap, and then it doesn't, like, if you're not gonna be hopefully it won't be too bad to be paying half attention. But not knowing what's going on might actually make it easier to only pay half attention. But yeah, no, I'll still give a recap. So this game is set in a fantasy world, and in this world there are humans, witches, and fairies. And it used to be they all got along fine. Humans are like, normal, non-magical, and witches and fairies, it's fine, I'm paying about 50% attention. Yeah, fair enough. So witches and fairies both have magic powers, and they are also both tasked with, this world has these two powerful, like, magic crystals that balance, like, goodness and, light and good emotions, and dark and bad emotions, and, of course, like, I think this game does a good job of establishing that both of these things are important, and it's also important that they be in balance. But because witches are in charge of the dark crystal, people tended to be a bit more prejudiced against witches. And then some human decided it'd be a great idea to come along and write a bunch of fairy tales. Like fairy tales like they are in the real world, and humans kinda started getting really obsessed with fairy tales and started thinking that all fairies are good and all witches are bad, which was never true. And it got so bad that they just kind of hit this point where, like, at first, witches were like, all right, we're gonna try and explain to people that no, and then it got to the point of witch hunts, and then the witches were like, fuck this shit, and they're also, the bearers of the dark crystal, and so the bearer of the dark crystal, after seeing all of, like, they just kind of gave up on trying to change the minds of humans and was like, yeah, nah, this is too much, and was also influenced by the dark crystal, or the crystal of dark things, it's called the Tenebrarum, and went, okay, war on the humans. And it was a really bad time. And it's, it's funny because on the one hand, like, it was awful, and she became this awful person, but on the other hand, kind of legit, like, the prejudice against witches had gotten really, really bad. Now, of course, the whole, and then witches started a war on humanity didn't help things, so witches are still pretty poorly regarded. Anyway, so that's the world overview. In the story of the world, we have our main character, Princess Lucette. She's the crown princess of this human kingdom, and she... And I'll just throw in the spoiler since we're at that point in the story. She doesn't know it, but, like, her mother was actually the witch who was the head of the witches and the bearer of the Tenebrarum crystal, and raised her very emotionally abusively. And, like, you know, taught her that everyone is out to get you and don't trust anyone and kindness is a weakness and all that good stuff. But also, like, completely wiped her memory of any of the reality of the world, like the fact that her mother was a witch. So she had, like, no idea that she was a witch. And she found that out last chapter. And another witch, who is a good witch, was keeping an eye on her because they know that she's going to inherit the Tenebrarum crystal, and was like, alright, do we think she's just gonna follow in her mother's footsteps? At this rate, kinda looks like maybe. And so the good witch, Delora, decided to curse Lucette so that sort of a reverse Cinderella curse, right? Riches to rags, where everybody forgot who she was and viewed her as a peasant. And then the way for her to break the curse is that she must perform 3 good deeds. In this run-through, I'm following... So this is also an otome dating sim game, so I'm following one of the love interest paths, and in this case, the love interest is her stepbrother, which is a little awkward, but they didn't grow up together. They kind of, they married into Lucette's family, like, a year previous to the game, roughly. And... Anyway, so... you can choose early on, like, who do you want to work with to try and break your curse, and so, since I'm doing this character Rod's route, I picked him, and the path that has given me is that Lucette has come to the castle as a maid to, because she thinks that maybe she can accomplish a good deed because Rod insists, like, you were awful to my sister and my family, and that's part of what makes you a bad person, and she's like, okay, so maybe I can do good if I not be awful to your, like, if I can fix whatever I see you are telling me I have broken here, maybe that will help me do good deeds. So she's in the palace. She's been assigned as her stepsister. No one remembers her, except for other people who are cursed, witches and fairies. All of those people will be unaffected by the curse. Anyway, sorry, I'm having fun with this summary, so it's running a little longer than it needs to, but... So she's been in the palace, and she was assigned as the personal maid of her stepsister, Emmeline, and has, through that, come to be like, oh, I was totally writing Emmeline off as this awful person, but, oh, actually, I'm now getting to see the real her, and how hard she's trying, and... like, that she really is just kind for the sake of kindness? What is this? People can just be kind without having ulterior motives? And basically has been, like, not even, like, fully cognizant of, but has been befriending Emmeline, and it's been very cute, and she's already accomplished her first good deed because Emmeline was really struggling. There's, like, this ball that's scheduled to happen. This is, like, a weird Beauty and the Beast sort of variant, too, sounds like. Yes and no, like, there's no... I mean, I guess if you're saying, like, she's in the role of the Beast, kind of, where, she's cursed so that... I mean, she's not cursed to, like, have become a beast, she's just cursed so that she is no longer, you know, the princess, but... There's not that element with the love story, like, aspect is totally different, like... It's actually quite cute, though this love interest plot is, like, her and the character Rod are both very tsundere archetypes. Oh, where he became ugly and then had to be nice to people? Yeah. So she doesn't become ugly, she just becomes poor. And has to be nice to people. Or really just has to learn how to be nice to people for the sake of being nice, and that they're there is good in the world and reconnect with, and she has those instincts, but like there's a lot of flashbacks with her mother where we see that her mother kept being like, you can't trust anyone but me, like I'm the only one who cares about you, anyone who's nice to you is just like wants something from you, you can't trust kindness, you can't, and being kind is a sign of weakness. Oh yes, well yes, that's why it's not the same, but yeah, nah, it is a little bit, yeah, I can see the comparison to Beauty and the Beast. Like, interestingly, I don't think anybody has, well, actually, I don't know that for sure. I don't know what everybody's curses are, like the other love interests. Because the funny thing is the fairy tale curses are all based on fairy tales. So, like, hers is based on Cinderella, although it's a reverse. And Rod, the love interest for this arc is, or for this route, is, he's got a Little Mermaid based curse, and I'm not quite sure what's going on, but it means, so he cannot speak of his own volition, but he has like a little stuffed rabbit who sits on his shoulder who can talk with his voice. So it mostly doesn't affect him, and partly due to the fact that it's not really causing any major inconveniences in his life, and also partly due to it's implied that he thinks that the cost of breaking his curse is worse than the curse itself. So but we don't know much about it. Like, we don't know why he was cursed or what the full details of the curse are, other than he can't speak, like, he's become mute and can't speak himself. And we don't know why he doesn't want to break it, or what he would have to do to break it, and what the consequences would be. But it's probably going to be something inspired by the original Little Mermaid story, which I can see a lot of angles with how the Little Mermaid ended really depressingly, so like the original Hans Christian Andersen version. So I can see a lot of angles by which Rod's curse, the cure could be worse than the problem. But I'm hoping that, you know, as we go on and progress the love plot, that maybe, because I know the problem with the Little Mermaid is that in the original story, the person that she loved never actually loved her back. And in this we have, Rod has this childhood friend who he always had a crush on, who is set to get married to someone else, so it's very similar to the Little Mermaid story in that way. And you know what? I just remembered, isn't there like a thing where she's supposed to, like, she's told that she can break, like, she has to kill him in order to not die herself? Is that, because that would definitely be I could see that being, hitting him, like, yeah, no fucking way, I'm not going to, like, kill my crush just to be uncursed. I'm not even being inconvenienced here. Yeah, or so it was she in the original fairy tale, she had to kill the person she loved, or turn to sea foam. And both of those are bad options. And in the original fairy tale, if I recall correctly, she's handed a knife, and if she kills him and his new bride, she would not die. So, yeah. And she was like, fuck that. 'Cause she, like, genuinely loved the guy, and she wasn't gonna just murder him, so she suffered. So I'm guessing that his curse has probably something to do with that. I'm wondering if, in fact, the way he was told that the way to break his curse would be to kill his crush and her new guy, and that would be a really good reason for him to be like, hard pass, thanks. So then the question is, can he just exist forever in the cursed state, or, like, will he eventually just die? If he loved her in time, it would have stuck, but since he didn't, she became foam. Also, her feet bled the entire time, and she didn't speak, so... Yeah, you know what? I don't know if Rod is, like, secretly unable to walk without feeling like knives are in his feet. Might be. He seems like the type who'd be good at keeping that kind of thing quiet. But yeah, especially if he's in a, like, holding pattern with the curse, where the only thing that it is doing is affecting him. Like, even if it's like, okay, you're gonna die if you don't do this, I still think he'd choose, obviously, to not do the thing, but, like, I wonder if it's even not as bad as that, and it's just a matter of, well, the only way to break the curse is to suffer, so I'll just exist in cursed state forever. Yeah, it depends, honestly, if he has a timer. Yeah, and that I don't know. Like, in the game, Rod's been very unwilling to talk about the details of his curse, which, you know, now that I've finally remembered how The Little Mermaid goes, makes a lot of sense. That he'd be like, yeah, this is all just very nightmare, and I don't want anyone else to have to deal with it. He hasn't even, like, told his sister or his family, and I can see why. That said, as I recall, the other way to break the curse is for the person you love to love you back. Or rather, in the original Little Mermaid, like, if the guy had loved her back instead of marrying another woman, then she would have been fine. And so I'm wondering if that's how we're gonna get the good ending for Rod, is he falls in love with Lucette instead, who is, like, clearly available and becoming increasingly interested, and, like, it's very clear that they are starting to develop mutual romantic feelings, and so I think maybe what will end up happening is that it, like, this is my guess because I haven't played through this, but, like, I think that what's gonna end up happening is that, you know, he and Lucette are gonna fall in love, and then whoop, and then woo, look at that, the person you love loves you back. It doesn't have to be the original person, it is a person you love who loves you back. Hooray, your curse is broken. That's my hope anyway. I mean, because I know that there is a good ending, and that seems the obvious way to get the good ending. But gosh, I'm so happy yeah, thank you for helping me with how the original story went, because I now feel cool for like, being able to predict things, and also it makes a lot of things make sense. I'm sure we'll, like, find out soon in the story. There's only, like, 3 more chapters to go. But yeah, no, like, that makes so much sense. I had just completely forgotten that key part where it is, like, kill them was the way. Anytime I am here for old fairy tales, yeah, I feel that. So yeah, you should totally continue watching me play this game, because I am only on the first of 5 routes, and each of the boys has a different curse, and I don't know what any of them are yet. Okay, that's not true. So Rod has the Little Mermaid curse. The next one in line is going to be, his name is Karma, and I don't know the details of his curse, but I think it's going to have something to do with Snow White, just because there is Red Rose is an archetype, and, you know, and so I don't remember the original shit with, like, Snow White and Rose Red, but I remember Rose Red exists. I'm here until about 5. Well, okay. I should probably, like, actually get started with this chapter. It'll probably go for, like, about an hour, but... anyway, so I've rambled enough, but yeah, if you want, so I believe the story is 10 chapters, and I'm gonna go back to the beginning with each route, so if you want to, like, come in... yeah, Snow White and Red Rose is a thing, so I don't know anything about that arc yet, but that's gonna be the next one that'll be starting, well, if this week is chapter 7, next week will be 8, week after that will be 9, week after... So in, like, a month, I'll be starting back over from the prologue, and starting on the whatever route is the Red Rose person. So, by the way, if you're ever interested in awesome versions of all these tales, Ursula Vernon writing as T. Kingfisher has some amazing ones. Alright, so noted. I may well look that up. Might also help me refresh my memory on a lot of these stories, so I can have, you know, cool guesses for how the plot's gonna go. Fair enough. Alright. So, thank you for listening through my long-winded recap. You know, we are on chapter 7, so it's been a while. So, alright, so I'm gonna jump into the game, and I'll still keep an eye on chat, and I'll, like, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can pause and answer. The Snow Queen variant has some amazing lesbian teenage love story. Nice! Definitely will have to look into that. So yeah, so I'm still responsive to chat. I might not see it right away, but once I actually go into the game, I'm gonna mostly just be reading all the dialogue out loud. So, yeah, so, and it is already, like, half hour past, well, okay, it's more like, Yeah, 20 minutes since I really got started, so I'm gonna start in the story, and we are on chapter 7, and I don't remember, I think, yeah, we're at the point where Lucette is trying to find out more about Rod's curse, and so her next goal is she's gonna go talk to Rod's old crush, and I think that's where chapter 7 is gonna pick up, so let's get to it. Once this loads, oops, nope, return. Where's the thing? I want to go... Yes. Chapter 7. Be careful what you wish for. Ooh, interesting. Today is the first time that I am leaving the palace on a day off. Usually, I choose to stay inside. Whereas the other servants always leave to go home, I never see any reason to leave since this has always been my home. Lucette, thinking to herself. And the March Hen has never been home. Besides, it's not as if I want to return. Not after that conversation we all shared last time. Thus, I have spent most of my days asking questions about Mother's reign, inquiring when and where I can. The opinions do not surprise me. Mayday. I was so scared of her, one wrong move and she'd have you thrown in prison. Maybe. The townsfolk would always wait for her to pass by before leaving their houses. Mayday. She was a tyrant! The kingdom is a better place now that she's gone. Oh, right, and also the witch who is Lucette's mother, who was the Tenebrarum bearer, and started the war with the humans, she married Lucette's father, the king, like, by threat, was like, hi buddy, you are going to marry me, or I'm going to kill the woman you actually love, because I want to take control of this kingdom, because that's going to be my launching point for my war, I assume. When she was alive, her reign was very scary, and Lucette has only just recently learned any of this stuff about her mother. She used to think, because she was taught by her mother, that her mother was the only person she could trust, and so she never understood why people in the town always seemed to hate her, and people didn't think fondly back on her mother. And now she's like, oh! So yeah. Lucette, thinking to herself. There is no reason for them to lie to me. The more I hear, the more my old life makes sense to me. I now know why the king never seemed to love Mother, and why the people hated her. And the reason why people looked at me with such fear. However, it has been months since I have been glared at in public. If there is one good thing that this curse did for me, it is that it allows me to travel around town without being noticed. As Viorica's shop comes into view, my thoughts shift to the reason I have left the palace in the first place. Lucette, thinking to herself. If Rod will not tell me anything, I will have to ask Viorica. She must be related in some way to his curse. I pause outside the door to the toy shop. With a deep breath, I push the door open. Viorica, welcome! The moment she sees me, her expression becomes confused. Viorica. Oh, you were the princess's maid. Lucette, wasn't it? I nod at her. Viorica. You've never come in here alone before. What can I help you with? Lucette. I wanted to ask you something. It is about Prince Rod. Viorica. Prince Rod? Did something happen to him? Is he okay? Lucette. He is fine. She sighs with relief. Viorica. Then what is it you would like to ask? Lucette. I just wanted to know if you knew anything about Prince Rod's sudden muteness. Viorica stares at me for a few moments before she shakes her head. Viorica. I only know that it happened soon after I met my fiancé, Desamond. What reason do you have for asking? Okay, so one thing we know is that most people, like I think the curses have always, curses have always existed, but it used to be that witches would only use them to teach people life lessons. But now, ever since, the fairy tales and people turning against witches started doing curses for cruelty's sake. So, knowing that Rod's curse started right after right after Viorica became not available, makes me think that someone was maliciously cursing him to be like, well, we have already guaranteed that the person you love is never going to love you back. Now suffer. That's my theory, anyway. Viorica. What reason do you have for asking? Lucette. Well, I tried to think of a plausible explanation for this. Lucette, you really should have thought of that before you started asking. I try to think of a plausible explanation for this, and I immediately consider Emmeline. Lucette, thinking to herself. Viorica is Emmeline's best friend. Surely she would be willing to help if she knew I was doing this for Emmeline. Are you doing it for... Well, that's fine. This seems like a harmless white lie. Lucette. Prince Rod has been very quiet recently. Princess Emmeline has been worried sick about him, but he refuses to say anything, even to her. I've been trying to gather information that might be helpful in discerning the cause. Viorica. Silence. I stare at her expectantly, hoping that my gaze holds nothing but determination. Finally, Viorica smiles. Viorica. She's lucky to have a dedicated friend like you. Lucette, thinking to herself. I'm still not accustomed to the fact that Emmeline considers me a friend. Viorica. Before she became the princess, I was her first confidant. We were like sisters. But now that she's living in the castle, we no longer have the luxury of spending so much time together. I worry about her constantly. Even around me, Emma always tended to keep her problems to herself at first. She doesn't like to bother other people with them. Lucette, thinking to herself. It is hard not to agree. With the way Emmeline was always smiling before, I never thought she had any problems in her life. It was only recently that I discovered that she was hiding all of her loneliness and pain behind a smile. And Viorica. It's a relief that she's befriended someone who cares so much about her. I don't know if I can be much help, but I'll tell you what I know if it will help Emmeline. To start with, I'm not exactly sure how everything changed, but it all happened so suddenly. All I know is that after the night I met Decimond, our relationship changed. At first he still smiled, but recently he's been avoiding me. Lucette. What happened between the two of you the night you met your fiancé? I feel like I put the emphasis weirdly there, but I'm gonna try not to overthink it. Viorica. Nothing. Rod and I did not meet on that day. Lucette. Prince Rod wasn't there? Viorica. No, but soon after what happened that night, Rod grew distant. Lucette. What happened? Viorica. Silence. It was a stormy night and I was heading back home. I took the route by the riverbank because it was the shortest route. It was foolish of me. The road was slippery and full of mud. I lost my footing and fell into the water. The waves were strong, and I was certain I was going to drown. Sorry, I just realized Little Mermaid curse. He went to save her because she was drowning, and that must be how he got cursed. Aww. But who would be such an... I was gonna say, who would be such an asshole to be like, oh, you saved the person you love and who has just met someone else and just like... I feel like you gotta be real mean to, like, curse someone in this circumstance, but, Then again, I could be misreading the situation. I should just keep reading. The game will explain things, and it also could be Rod, like, accepted a curse in exchange for being able to save her or something noble like that. Anyway, Viorica. I don't remember what happened in the darkness of that water, only that when I woke up, my head was in Decimond's lap. That was the first time we met, but not the last. He carried me home, and he came by every day as I was recovering. And then he came to visit even after I had recovered. I tried not to get my hopes up too much, because what could this nobleman see in me, a mere commoner? But I still ended up falling in love with him. You have no idea how happy I was when he said he loved me too. It was a dream come true. Of course, every girl dreams of marrying a prince. It was in all of the fairy tales that I read as a child. Lucette, thinking to herself, none of that was at all related to Rod. How does this relate to his curse? Who is like the Ursula equivalent? Yeah. I don't know. That's gonna be whoever cursed him is gonna probably be the Ursula equivalent. And there's a lot of things here. So, like, one interesting thing about this world is because the fairy tale curses exist and they are based on the fairy tales, it's established that in this world, all of the fairy tales exist as we know them in the real world, even though this is, like, a totally different universe. But Lucette Lucette's mother being, you know, the head of the people, like, you know, obviously really hated fairy tales for all of the reasons that I've gone into before, and so never let Lucette read them. So Lucette has no idea about the plot of The Little Mermaid, and so any of that being like, holy crap, that sounds really familiar, like getting saved from drowning and then continuing to see someone after that is like... Now, of course, it's going to be based on that fairy tale, but with some terrible twist. I mean, other than... So, oh gosh, I want to know what the twist is gonna be. I want to know how this happened. I want to know if Rod is actually the one who saved her, or if it was actually this Decimon guy, or what, she can't go to the library and, like, read? I mean... She's busy? It didn't occur to her? I don't actually know. There is not a good reason, aside from plot, for why Lucette has not gone to seek out the original fairy tale yet. I think it just hasn't occurred to her. So, yeah, no, that it's a weird choice that she, I mean, I think maybe it's just because it's easier to progress the plot. Shorter story, yeah, the characters have to go to the basement in horror movies, lol. Yep, exactly. So, yeah, to keep the story drama. Although, I will say, she could sit there and read the book and still be as confused as, like, we are watching this. Or, like, I'm sitting here being like, okay, I know all about The Little Mermaid, and I know how this compares to this, and this compares to this, but I still don't actually feel like I have the answer. So, you know, I guess they just didn't want to deal with that. Anyway, Lucette thinking to herself, none of that was at all related to Rod. How does this relate to his curse? Lucette, out loud. You said your relationship with Prince Rod changed after that night. What happened? Viorica sighs. Viorica. I told Em and Rod about Decimond soon after the incident. Em was happy that the two of us had fallen in love, but Rod didn't say much of anything. That's when I noticed he started growing distant, and when I realized that he had also lost his voice. He still won't tell me anything, but I figured that he was... Her voice fades, but I know she is referring to the curse. Lucette thinking to herself. So Rod lost his voice shortly after Viorica met Decimond. The mermaid's curse must have something to do with the tale. The Little Mermaid traded... Oh, let me rephrase. Lucette has read the first half of the story, and by the first half, I mean, like, she got a little bit of a ways in before her mother found her with the book and went, yeah, nope, and then took it away. It is nice for us to have that confusion in parallel to her confusion. Yeah, that's true. They don't want to go in assuming. I actually think that that's kind of well done on the part of the game writers, now that I think about it. It would make sense for her to go read the story, but on the other hand, I like that the game doesn't want to assume that like, the audience has read the fairy tale, all these fairy tales. Like, it means that you get these cool bonuses, like this kind of almost like an Easter egg experience, I feel like. If, you know, this cool extra experience of, ooh, I do know the fairy tale, so I get to make guesses, but it's nice to have Lucette not really knowing the fairy tales other than the very basics, because your average audience member would be more likely to only know the basics of any given fairy tale. So, and, you know, you can... So yeah, in the end, I actually think this is nice, and I had forgotten that Lucette knows a little bit of the story. So Lucette thinking to herself, the Little Mermaid traded her voice for legs so that she could be with her prince, but that night the only person who found their prince charming was Viorica. Rod's curse must have something to do with Decimond and Viorica. He became distant with her after finding out about Decimond. Why? Then there is the fact that he still spoke to Viorica, even if he was distant. It was only when he found out about their wedding that he became so cold. Yeah, that definitely sounds like the whoever cursed him, whatever the finer points of the curse are, it's probably something very similar to that whole, welp, one solution is you can just kill them both, and it's very reasonable he would not want to do that. I frowned as I tried to organize my thoughts. Viorica. How did it get to be this late? I'm so sorry, Lucette, but I have to close the shop now. Sorry for the story. I know it has nothing to do with Rod, but it was after that incident that he began to act strangely. I don't think it was much help, but... I shake my head. Lucette, you have told me what you could. Viorica walks me to the door, opening it so that the both of us can step out into the street together. Viorica, I really hope that you're able to help Emmeline and Rod. Lucette, I hope so too. Noblewoman B. Random noblewoman on the street. Labeled Noblewoman B. Did you see Ophelia the other day? I catch sight of two noblewomen sitting on a bench together, not too far away from the toy shop. Lucette, thinking to herself, they are referring to Ophelia without her title. How disrespectful. Noblewoman B. Who would have thought that a peasant like her could almost look like royalty? But her, I'm just gonna call them A and B, because noblewoman is a long word to read. So, A. But her dress. As the queen, she ought to be wearing silks rather than satin. I do not know why, but I bristle at their comments. Lucette, thinking to herself, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but the fact that they are speaking so bluntly in public means that they have little worry of being overheard. B. I'm still not sure what the king saw in her. A. Well, you know what they say about ladies lacking natural beauty. Her talents must lie in other, more persuasive areas. B. She must be very persuasive indeed if the king saw it worthwhile to marry her. Wow! These people are like next level bitchy assholes. Wow! Sorry, I'm just... Like, it's a fictional story, but like, I'm mad on behalf of Ophelia. Like, the things we know about Ophelia, she's married to the king, and she was his first love, and the one that Lucette's mother threatened to kill if the king didn't marry Lucette's mother instead. And so, like, you know, once the war was won and Lucette's mother was out of the picture, he was able to... Well, Ophelia had gone off and married someone else in the meanwhile, and had, you know, the other two kids, and then I guess her husband also must have passed away or something similar, and so then finally the king and Ophelia were able to be together like they had kind of always wanted to in the first place. And it's this very sweet love story. Like, he loves Ophelia. She was the one he wanted to marry in the first place, and I'm just super mad at these random strangers being wild, like, being not just catty, but wildly inappropriate about, like, this person who, and bad-mouthing in public the person who is their queen. Like, yeah, nah, I'm 100% with Lucette getting really mad about this. And also, Lucette, you know, it's possible that before she started to kind of undo some of her mother's programming, she might have walked by. But on the other hand, she's always been taught that people should respect you. Like, one thing that was not entirely bad that her mother taught her was that, you know, as the nobility and the princess of the land, people owe her respect. And there's a certain extent to which I don't agree with a lot of class system stuff, but, like, there is a level of, yes, basic respect that, honestly, I think anyone should pay to anyone. This is extremely disrespectful, and, like, particularly in the context that she is the queen and all that, but also just, it's not a nice thing to be saying about anyone. It's just really... Oh, it makes me mad. It makes me mad. And I think Lucette is going to be especially upset because she actually last chapter had kind of a sweet moment with Ophelia where she's like, I don't think she was consciously like, is this what a mother is supposed to be like? But I think she was a little realizing, gee, maybe this is what a mother is supposed to be like when she saw Ophelia with Emmeline. Oh man. Anyway, so let us continue this scene and see how Lucette reacts to this really shitty behavior. As the two women laugh, I feel something hot begin to burn in my stomach. Viorica takes in a sharp breath beside me. Since I became a maid in the palace, Ophelia has been nothing but kind to me, a mere servant. She has all the right to flaunt her status and title, yet she remains humble. Lucette, thinking to herself, I now know that this is why everyone at the palace loves her. Noblewoman A. Common women like her can only keep a man's attention for so long. Is it really just so insane to these people that love exists in this world and that people can stay with people who are not the person you might expect because they love them? I start walking towards them without thinking. Vyrika. Lucette, I wouldn't... Lucette. You have no right to say those things about the queen. The two women are clearly surprised at my interruption. Both of them glare at me. Noblewoman B. And you have no right to eavesdrop on us. Lucette. Eavesdropping? Anyone could have heard you. Their mouths fall open. One of the women looks at me for a long time, then sneers suddenly, as if something has occurred to her. A. I thought you looked familiar. You're the Crown Princess's personal maid. I see you always following her around when she's in town. This is none of your business, girl. Why do you care so much for our opinions? B. Perhaps it's because the girl idolizes the queen, thinks she might also go from rags to riches. Lucette. What? A. Oh, you do have a point. They stand and advance towards me. A. Do you want the prince for yourself, girl? A. If a commoner can become the queen, it's not too difficult to imagine yourself as a princess, is it? Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony. At least there is one thing that Rod can be completely confident in, and that is that Lucette is not interested in him because of his status, because Rod is, as a fellow cursed person, knows who she is, and yeah, nah. If anything, he is below her status, but obviously these people wouldn't know because the only context they have of her is maid in the palace, and they're awful mean people. B. How foolish. You're better off dreaming smaller dreams, girl. They laugh, and the irritation in my chest blazes into full-on anger. Lucette, thinking to herself, is this what Ophelia has been dealing with for the past year? She's being treated so cruelly when she has done nothing but love the king. And I also ridiculed her, just like this. Okay, to Lucette's credit, I do not think she ever ridiculed Ophelia like this. Like, the ways in which she would, like, I mean, I think she did have a little bit of, why would my father marry a petty commoner? But it was more like a petty commoner, not the kind of catty that these women are being. I force myself to look at the cruel women as I move my hand to the pendant hanging around my neck. Lucette, thinking to herself, I was just as cruel as them. Alright, I think this is a good realization for Lucette to have, because she was unkind and she was incredible. Like, her thoughts were very her inner thoughts were very unflattering, but I still think, like, categorically the things that she did were worse than the things that these women are doing. Even if she was thinking some of the same things, first of all, like, the ways in which she was thinking were more just on the, like, a little less inappropriate, in the, like, well, gee, I bet she's got some skills to keep a man interested. Like, Lucette never was like, clearly she's sleeping her way to the top. Lucette was just classist about it, which she was trained to be by her mother. And I'm glad that she realizes that was bad. And I think it's important for her to have this realization that, oh, the things I was saying and thinking were very cruel, just like these people are being cruel now. But Lucette was never quite this bad. Like, these women are egregious. Alright, I'm gonna stop complaining. Sorry. I'm gonna try to chill. Like, I'm meant to be angry at these women. I was reading their words as saying she had weird magic or something to ensorcel him. Oh, yeah, I mean, that's possible, but I'll say my read on it was that they were implying that she had talents in other areas. You know what? I like it better to assume that they meant that they think she's also a witch or something. But my initial read was that they were implying that she slept her way to the top. So. Which, if I was reading that right, is wildly inappropriate. Even more so than a lot of the other stuff. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the classist stuff is also super bad. Like, how dare some peasant woman have gotten the king's attention somehow, but... And, like, that was where Lucette was. Lucette was very much in the classist camp of looking down on Ophelia because she was a commoner, but, like... You know, the other thing is, so first of all, Lucette's thoughts were differently, but similarly, but differently bad. And also she never pulled this kind of shit. She was never so disrespectful to, like, talk loudly about it in public. She mostly kept her thoughts to herself. I don't remember if she might have said things directly to Ophelia that were cruel, which in some ways, which is also very bad, but, like, never this kind of disrespect, the gossiping behind her back kind of cruel. So yes, so I'm gonna stop comparing, and I'm gonna allow myself to be angry at these women, because they are awful, and I'm going to focus more on the part where it is really good that Lucette is realizing that her mindset was bad, and that she was also quite cruel to Ophelia, because the thing is, even if it wasn't in this same way, she was unkind to Ophelia. Like, she, if in nothing else, she was always just very short-witted, and, like, I think it's been a while since I played the first chapters, but she may actually have said cruel things to Ophelia's face. And a lot of "you're not my real mom" vibes, but... So I'm glad she's realizing that. But these women make me mad, and I just... Alright. So I'm gonna refocus on the story. Oh, now, of course, the other thing that's bad in this situation is that, like, there is a part of me that's like, oh, she's a maid. We're of a higher class than her. We can get away with doing whatever we want to her, and so... I mean... Probably this is just a matter of, like, they're gonna do what they did and ridicule her, Lucette, for speaking up, but I'm glad Vairika is there to be there for her. Anyway. Sorry. Getting very distracted about this. Yeah, hard same. Yeah. Getting very distracted about this, but I'm gonna go back. I barely feel Vairika's hand as she rests it against my shoulder. Vairika. Lucette, let it go. Her Majesty wouldn't want you to do this. Lucette, thinking to herself. But I cannot just let these two women talk about Ophelia like this. I pull away from Vairika and stand firm. Lucette, thinking to herself. The Queen has a good heart. No, oh, sorry, not thinking to herself. I thought it was italics, but she is saying this out loud, and I'm actually really proud of her, because I do think that this is a situation where it's not, you know, other than I'm worried about what these noble women could do to her, like, I am really proud of Lucette for being upset on Ophelia's behalf, and upset enough to speak up about it. Lucette, out loud. The Queen has a good heart. She is far more noble than either of you could ever hope to be. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. If there's one like, Lucette, despite all the fucked up shit her mother taught her, she did somehow get a sense of noblesse oblige. Like, she's definitely I do remember a bit in the past in the game where she was, like, upset that people of noble rank were being like this. In another context, I don't remember the exact context, I just remember her being like, you are nobility and you should act and you should carry yourself with dignity and, you know, be more respectful. Maybe she got it from her father. Yeah, her father was, I think, very afraid of her mother and was very hands-off in raising her, to the point that, and then now that her mother is gone, it kind of just seems like he's been sitting there being like, I care about her and I want to intervene, but I just don't know how, and so he's been a little useless. Maybe she inherited it from him, but, like, She sure did not learn it directly from him. I can sympathize with her father not really being able to intervene when her mother was around, because her mother would have very actively prevented him from being able to get close to her. But it is a little frustrating that he didn't try harder once her mother was gone to reach out to her. She definitely, at the start of the game, and at this point I think still, was very much of the opinion that her father hated her and never loved her. And in fact, when she found out the story about her mother, she literally had the thought, oh, no wonder my father hates me, and started crying. And so, like, I'm a little... Although I do believe her father cares about her, and I would like to see them, like, be able to, like, make up and have him actually express that to her, I'm a little mad at her father, actually. Like, dude, you should have tried harder. Anyway, so, Lucette confronting the noble women. The queen has I'm gonna read this again because it makes me happy, because it's... yeah. The queen has a good heart. She is far more noble than either of you could ever hope to be. I think back on the times I was cruel to her. Ophelia could have easily reprimanded me for my behavior. She had that right as my stepmother, yet she has been nothing but kind to me. Ophelia never got angry at me, even despite my treatment towards her and her family. Lucette, out loud. She has always treated others with kindness, even when they are cruel to her. Judging from the bitterness in your accusations, it seems like you are jealous of her. How pathetic. Yeah! Sorry. That was good. That was good. I'm sorry. Just the, like... That was a good comeback. That is exactly the kind of thing that you could say to people, to women like this, like, people like this, to get under their skin. Like, you're jealous of her, aren't you? Oh, nice, nice. The other woman marches towards me, and my free hand instinctively moves to hold her hand just before her palm reaches my cheek. Noblewoman B. Shocked. Lucette, out loud. I will not tolerate any insults towards the queen. A soft light emanates from the pendant, and I can only stare at it in shock. Lucette, thinking to herself, I got another good deed? Alright. I'm not sure I agree with the game that was inherently a good deed. I guess you could say. But I actually think it fits within the spirit of breaking her curse, just because it was a breakthrough of... It was a how to be a good person breakthrough. It was a... I wonder if, like, doing good for her stepmom is the thing here. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, the fact that she realized that she had been, like, not just heard people being cruel to her stepmother and got angry, like, but that she got angry on her stepmother's behalf and realized her own complicity. Oh, I just got a follow and my alert is a little, oh, whoops. Thank you so much. Let me check my activity feed. Gilani, thank you so much for the follow. Sorry about my alert box. I just kind of changed from one system to another, so it was a little off-center there, but I caught that, and thank you so much! Yeah, I'm midway through Chapter 7, I mean, as it says in my title, I'm midway through Chapter 7 of Rod's Route, and this is my first ever playthrough, so I'm planning to play through all the routes, but this is my very first time playing. Your alert was off screen. Yeah, I'll work on it. I was just, I've been, futzing with it. I caught it on my OBS, so I will look into that after the stream and fix it for the future, but yes, thank you so much for the follow, and yeah, so I'm midway through Chapter 7, I am really enjoying the game, and thank you so much for coming by and for checking me out and for following, I appreciate it a lot, and I'm really enjoying this scene where Lucette is getting, like, righteously angry on her stepmother's behalf, and has earned her good deed for it. Like, I really think that that's the key. It's not so much like, I mean, I think the act of standing up for her stepmother is a good in and of itself, but I think the more critical part of it that made it worthy of good deed status was that she got angry on her stepmother's behalf at all, and also that little realization she had of, like, oh wow, I was also cruel to her, and at any time, like, and realizing that her stepmother is a good person who didn't deserve that, like, was a really important realization. And also, I'm just looking, while I'm looking over it, I'm moving my camera up so it's blocking Lucettes' head a little less. Boop. Yeah, so I'm so proud of her. I think, and I was also really satisfied because the things the noble women were saying about Ophelia were really cruel, and I am really proud of Lucette for standing up for her stepmother, and like, it was also a good verbal smackdown and very satisfying to see. So Lucette thinking to herself, I got another good deed? Oops, let me click. By defending Ophelia? Yeah, and also, actually, it does also make sense. Defending Ophelia for no other purpose than, like, feeling righteously angry on her behalf. Like, it's not, you know, without any ulterior motive or even any possibility of reward for it. Like, just because she's upset on, like, defending her stepmother because she's upset on her behalf is, I can see how that is, like, a caring thing to do. So. The woman snatches her hand away. Noblewoman B. How dare a peasant like you talk that way to us? Have you no manners? Lucette. Responding exactly how I would want to respond in the situation. I could ask you the same. What happened to yours? Noblewoman A. How dare you? B. Don't you know who we are, girl? A. I will see that you pay for your impertinence. B. Our words have far more weight than yours ever will. I will go to the king myself and tell him about how rude you were. And I mean, the fact that they think that that will work when they know for a fact that Lucette is Emmeline's personal maid is like... Yeah, alright guys. I mean, you are so full of yourselves that I absolutely see why you think that your word would be taken over hers. But you are wrong in this case, because Lucette... Like, absolutely, Emmeline and Ophelia, and even I think the king would believe Lucette over these random women. Voice. Oh, so whoops, I think I forgot to read that. Yay! I didn't expect Rod to show up here. Yay. But I mean, of course he's gonna show up eventually. It's, you know, it's his route, so. No, wait, I went back so I could read that. Voice. I can pass on that message myself. I turn and see Rod walking towards us, his expression cold. The two noble women hastily curtsy. Noblewoman B. Your Highness! The noble women turn pale as Rod's eyes fall on them. B. Actually, we have an important dinner engagement. A. Yes, we do! Amazing. Just went running. The two noble women curtsy before quickly departing. Lucette. What are you doing here without your guards? You... Rod. What trouble have you gotten yourself into now? Alright. It is choice time, which means it is save before making a choice time. So that so my usual thing with this is I make the choice that I think makes sense, but I'm often bad at guessing. But this game has a right choice indicator, so it will, like, you get a little indicator that you've made the correct choice for the good ending. So if I don't get that by the end of the scene, I'll go back and replay it with the correct response. So in this case, I don't know, because on the one hand, tell him what was going on is like, my instinct is to be like, well, let me explain the situation. But on the other hand, if he overheard the whole thing and Lucette doesn't tell him, that could have the upshot of, like, being reflecting well, because, I mean, I think it counts more as a good deed if you didn't do it for reward, and I don't think Lucette would turn around and be like, oh yes, I defended your mother, aren't you proud of me? Like, I think it could come across that way. Don't do virtue signaling, lol. Yeah, exactly. I don't want tell him to turn, I don't always know how it's gonna, you know, I get the option of Lucette telling him or not telling him, but I don't know how Lucette's gonna tell him, so I don't want to run the risk that it's gonna, like, turn into virtue signaling, but I don't know that it will, so it could still be that. So I'm gonna lean towards not telling him, and hope that actually what's happened is that he's overheard it and will be like, wow, she's not even, like, bragging about it. that she did this thing, but it could also be that I'm underestimating Lucette, and we will find out that the correct answer would have been to tell him. Because again, it really depends on how she delivers it, I think. Alright, so I'm gonna guess do not tell him. Lucette. It is nothing. Rod. If you refuse to tell me what happened, I will have to assume that the noblewomen were telling the truth about you. Oh right, Viorica was there! Yes, this was the correct answer! Because I'd actually totally forgotten that Viorica was there, and so this is absolutely, instead of virtual signaling by let me tell you what I did, it was nothing. I'm not going to give the details, but then this other person who has no reason to lie on my behalf is going to come forward and be like, do you even know the, like, awesome thing she just did? So that's what I think is how this is going to go. So I think this was the right choice, but we'll see. I haven't gotten the indicator yet. Viorica. Lucette has done nothing wrong. In fact, I think Lucette only did what you or Emmeline would have done had you heard the awful things those women were saying about your mother. Rod. What? Viorica. She stood up for the Queen when she didn't have to. Rod. Then why didn't you just say so? Lucette. Would you have believed me? Rod. Silence. And that's also another good reason, is, like, I didn't even think of, like, Rod he's getting over his negative impression of Lucette, definitely, but, like, he started with a very negative view of her because she was treating him and his family very cruelly and coldly. So I can totally see Lucette, like, being like, not that you'll believe me, so I'm not gonna bother. But yeah, and no, I had totally forgotten. If I had remembered that Viorica was there, I would have been even more sure of this as being the right answer. Anyway. Rod. Silence. Rod drops his gaze from mine. Rod. You never gave me a chance to believe you, did you? Alright, that also could be... Sorry, I know I'm going back and forth on this a lot, but now I'm like, wait, maybe the fact that she didn't trust that he'd believe her is a bad thing, and I should have just had Lucette tell him in the first place. So, because, oh, well, we'll find out. We'll find out. I'll get the choice indicator one way or I won't. It won't happen until the scene shifts. But now that makes me sad that Rod is like, you never gave me a chance to believe you, did you? Lucette, shocked, thinking to herself, he would have believed me? How am I to know? Rod is like a walking contradiction. This is just him being a dude. Fair. Like, Lucette is right here. Like, how is she supposed to have realized that his feelings have changed that much? Because he was very, very verbally clear to her that he did not like her early on. Rod glances up again, this time to look at Viorica. Rod. We shouldn't keep you from returning home, Viorica. I'll take Lucette back to the palace. Viorica's eyes narrow, and she looks ready to say something, but Rod has already reached out for my hand to pull me along behind him. I think that's a shift, and that means that I made the wrong choice. Game, I disagree with you that I made the wrong choice. Well, I'll go a little further. When we are out of sight of Viorica's shop, Rod stops, releasing my hand as he turns to face me. Rod. Did you really think I would refuse to believe you if you told me the truth? Lucette. You never liked me. You have no reason to believe me. Oh, maybe I'll wait for this interaction to change because... Yeah. Rod sighs, running a hand through his hair. Rod. I told you that I would help you break your curse, right? That offer alone should have been enough for you to know that I... Rod turns away, suddenly looking embarrassed. Did I mention that he's a tsundere? They're both tsunderes. Okay, I was right. Sorry, game. I take it back. I was wrong to doubt you. Ah, I love it. This is actually very cute. So the biggest appeal of Lucette and Rod as a romance is that they're both very tsundere, so it's very cute where they'll be all huffy, but then they will be like, you know, then blushy. Oh, this is nice. Alright, so I'm gonna go back. I'm actually just gonna go back so I can just... This is a very short bit, so I'll just reread from Rod. I told you that I would help you break your curse, right? That offer alone should have been enough for you to know that I... Rod turns away, suddenly looking embarrassed. That... Out loud. That I don't dislike you anymore. That said, Lucette is correct here. Lucette, out loud. You were expecting me to just assume that? How would I know unless you made that absolutely clear? And I think Lucette's not wrong. He was very clear about disliking her. He's been less clear about no longer disliking her. And that's because he has trouble being honest with his feelings. But then part of what makes this cute is him being honest with his feelings even though it's difficult for him. And I think that the fact that he is starting to do that is a lot of what makes this appealing. Yeah, dude. Enthusiastic consent of friendship. Yeah. Right, so Lucette says, you were expecting me to just assume that? How would I know unless you made that absolutely clear? Rod. Well, I'm making it clear now. Lucette. I understand. Rod. Anyway, thank you for standing up for my mother. It seems like you don't require my assistance in breaking your curse at all. I mean, it is true. Both of her good deeds were gotten largely without his help. But, I mean, I think he's still been there for her on several important occasions. He gestures to my necklace. Rod. Congratulations on your second good deed, Lucette. Suddenly tongue-tied, I find myself looking everywhere but at Rod. When I have once again gathered my senses, I turn to the road. My eyes narrow as I recognize the path that we are on. Lucette. This is not the way back to the palace. Rod. No, it isn't. We're going to the Marchen. Lucette. Why? Rod. Because I was on my way there before I was forced to take a detour because someone was drawing attention to herself. Lucette. What? But Rod ignores me, and we walk the rest of the way to the Marchen in silence. Waltz is the only person in the reception room when we enter. Waltz. Prince Rod? Princess? It's a little late for you two to be here. Rod. I had meant to be here earlier. Is Lady Parfait here? Waltz nods. I'll go get her. Wait here. As soon as Waltz leaves us alone, Rod turns to me, his expression rigid. Rod steps closer and grabs my shoulders. I like to take screenshots, so there's always a little noise when there's those images. And I know you can access those images, there's a gallery in the main menu, but it just makes me happy. Lucette, shocked. Rod, I wasn't able to say so earlier because we were out in public. Alright, I am gonna pause very quickly. I will try not to get hung up on this, but it bothers me that his mouth is open when it is explicitly the case in the game that it is the rabbit who is talking, not him. I'm gonna not get hung up over it. It's a minor detail. I gotta go. This is an amazing story. Thank you for coming by, and I hope you can watch the previous stories, or I hope that you'll come back for future ones. I will be playing this game for quite a while, and I am loving it. It's really fun. It's really well written, and it's really good. So, but bye. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. All right, so. Focusing back on the moment that is sure to be cute, even if I'm getting hung up on the particular bit of the art. Maybe he mouths along with Zebby talking, but that's kind of odd, but I'll try not to think about it. I'm just gonna move on and keep reading. Rod. I wasn't able to say so earlier because we were out in public, but you should know just how much danger you're in now. And yet you thought it was okay to go around on your own? Lucette. It was my day off today. It is not unreasonable for me to want time for myself. Rod. Time to yourself? Don't you understand the meaning of be careful? Why would you do something as foolish as going out into town alone? I cannot help but bristle at his tone. Lucette. Why are you so angry? Rod. Because you're... I think the rest of that sentence is, because you're important to me and I'm worried about you, but he's probably not going to actually say that. Let's see what he actually says. Nothing is the answer for now. Rod trails off and looks away. Rod. Because you're family. Lucette. So you are finally acknowledging me as family? Rod. Silence. I notice his cheeks turning red. Rod. To be honest, you're less of a family member and more just... I think he means family more in the found family way and in the, like, you know, developing, burgeoning romance way. But also it's a good excuse for him to, like, cover up certain amounts of embarrassment. Anyway, so, Rod. To be honest, you're less of a family member and more just... important. Oh, he did say it! He did say it! Because you're important to me. Lucette. Important? Rod. Because of all that you do for Eveline. Sure, buddy. Sure. You're important to my sister. Sure, buddy. I mean, that's also true. He looks uncomfortable as he says the words, and I cannot help but marvel at his embarrassment. Lucette, thinking to herself. Why is he so embarrassed? But Rod changes the topic as he turns away from me. Rod, why were you with Viorica? Lucette. Silence. Oh, this is a fair confrontation. Rod. I can only think of one reason you'd speak to her. My curse. You thought you'd find out about my curse through her. I shrug. Lucette. I can only assume that your curse has something to do with Viorica. Rod. Silence. I look up when Rod says something, then stare at the curious sight before me. He has taken Sebi off of his shoulder and is holding the doll in his hands, away from his face. The two seem to be engaged in some silent conversation. Then, gently, Sebi speaks words that I can hear. Sebi. This is the right thing to do. You need to let her help you, Rod. I like Sebi. Rod. Silence. Rod bites down on his lower lip before briefly closing his eyes. Eventually, he returns Sebi to his usual spot on his shoulders and turns to me. Rod. Fine. You're stubborn and you're not going to quit investigating unless I tell you, aren't you? Or are you? You're right. Viorica is the reason I was cursed. Rod sits down on the settee and lets out a heavy sigh. His eyes are far away as he speaks to me. Rod, out loud. I was in love with Viorica, but I wasn't brave enough to tell her. I just followed her around like some kind of puppy. One day, Viorica hadn't come home, and it was raining very heavily, so I went out to look for her. I found her walking along the bank of the river. I called out to her to tell her to be careful, but I don't think she ever heard me. She slipped and... Rod swallows. He clenches one of his hands into a fist. Rod, out loud. She fell into the river. I dived in after her. I somehow managed to get both of us onto the riverbank, but it didn't look like Viorica was breathing. I didn't know what to do. I started panicking. I ran off to try and find help, but I couldn't find anyone in the storm. When I returned, she was gone. I rushed to her house, and a doctor was already there tending to her, along with... Lucette. Desimond. Rod's gaze is vacant as he nods. Rod. Out loud. When Viorica began to fall in love with Desimond, I felt helpless. Lucette. Did you not tell her that you were the one that saved her? Rod. Out loud. Sorry, probably didn't specify out loud there. Rod. Why would I? Viorica was so happy believing that she and Desimond were fated to be together. I couldn't do that to her. Lucette. But surely if you told her... Rod interrupts me. Rod, out loud. I want the people I love to be happy. That's very sweet. He is very sweet. I mean, I know that tsundere is very much a classic archetype at where the, like, you know, there's the dere, the very loving, sweet part underneath it all. And it's just really nice when you get to see that. He's a nice boy. He's very cute. He's very sweet. This is very sweet. I want the people I love to be happy. As you should, but it's very sweet that he said so out loud. I don't care if their happiness causes me pain. I'd rather bear that alone instead of bringing down those around me. My chest aches as I watch Rod's face. Lucette, thinking to herself, I never would have guessed that Rod would be so selfless. Rod. But that didn't stop me from thinking that I could still make her love me instead. I decided to become what I thought Viorica wanted most, the Prince Charming of the fairy tales she so adored. Oh, interesting. Rod. And so I asked a witch to turn me into one. She stole my voice in exchange. Only then did I realize that she had inflicted the fairy tale curse upon me, the mermaid's curse. That's really interesting. I was actually genuinely wondering if one of the prerequisites to the relationship would be somehow removing the factor that they are step-siblings, but I'm confused. Like, on the other hand, it makes total sense. Like, I don't see why the king wouldn't have married Ophelia anyway, and he would have become a prince anyway, unless he's, like, not actually related to them, but, like, I'd be really surprised if that was the case. It's possible. It's possible he's not even actually related to Ophelia and Emmeline, but I don't think that's the case, so... On the other hand, there's also the really dark angle of the only reason that Ophelia was able to marry the king was, like, you know, because presumably she had married someone else as well, that being Emmeline and Rod's father. And what if the curse just made it so that he wasn't in the picture anymore? Whew. Anyway, alright, I'm gonna stop theory spinning and keep going. Rod. Only then did I realize that she had inflicted the fairy tale curse upon me. The mermaid's curse. Rod. Out loud. The next day, the king turned up at our house, proclaiming that he'd been looking for my mother for years and that he'd never stopped loving her. When the king married my mother, I became a prince. It was just as the witch promised. But it didn't matter. I didn't see it when I made the deal with the witch, but I couldn't be blind to it forever. Decimond and Viorica really do love each other. They make each other happy. Nothing I can do will ever change that. Okay, so even if it's not as dark as, and then the way to break it would be, like, killing her, but, like, this makes sense if he fears that breaking it would mean breaking up his family, like, if his mother is happy this way, and he doesn't want to, like, mess with Viorica and Decimond's relationship because they seem happy, and, like, all sorts of other things around that, I could still understand. But we'll find out, I'm genuinely confused, though, just because, like, I don't think a curse could have made the backstory with the king and Ophelia. Like, I mean, we literally got the information that Lucette's mother threatening Ophelia was what, like, threatening to kill Ophelia was what is how she threatened the king into marrying her in the first place. But, on the other hand, maybe it was just that the curse sped up the process of the king finding her. Like, he might legit have been looking for Ophelia, and the reason he turned up the next day was because the curse actually allowed him to find Ophelia. In which case, undoing the curse shouldn't actually affect, like, Ophelia or Emily or any of his family at all. Like, as long as it was true facts that the king loves Ophelia and had been looking for her, and it was just a shortcut to finding her. So that, at least, is probably not actually a problem. Lucette. Rod, Parfait. Prince Rod? Parfait. Oh! Sorry. Parfait pauses in her tracks when she sees me. Out loud. Have I interrupted something? Rod. No. Well, yes, but of course he's gonna say no. Rod moves over to Parfait, but he stops to glance back at me. Rod, out loud. I won't be long. Parfait looks at Rod and then at me, her face puzzled, but she does not say a word as Rod and her leave the room. Alright, that's a is that a mid-chapter break? Because gosh, I mean, I know I part of this I slowed up myself up a bit by I'm not going to be upset about that. I'm just like, this is running longer than I expected, but it is 100% because I've been stopping to do as much commentary as I have. But I mean, I like stopping and doing commentary. I like stopping and interacting with chat, so I'm not going to regret that. I'm going to just keep on keeping on, and I'm going to mute really briefly because the biggest problem I'm having here is that I'm actually very hungry, so I'm going to like open a little granola bar, but I don't want the crinkly noises to come across too much, and so I'm just going to take a brief moment to pause to open it, and then I will try to open it and I will eat it in small bits to not be disruptive, so... Yeah, so gosh, I'm sorry that I've been doing so much eating on stream for anyone who's been continuing to watch me, but, yeah, I just need to get a little better about remembering to eat beforehand. Outcaster. Days go by, but I still find myself overwhelmed by preparations for the ball. Things become more frantic every day, making it difficult for me to have any time to speak with anyone. Eventually, I decide to write a letter containing my suspicions of Sir Alcaster. I tell Parfait and Delora that I believe he might be the witch they are looking for. I also add that I believe Fritz might somehow be involved, though my suspicions are not as well founded with him. Lucette, thinking to herself. To make matters worse, he went and disappeared. I've not heard anyone mention his name here for a very long time. Oh no! Oh, I like Fritz a lot. Like, I suspect that... I'm really looking forward to his route because, I suspect it's going to include a lot of tropes that are just really my jam. So I am concerned about Fritz, and I will probably have to wait until his route to find out what's going on with him, because for this route, he's just a background character. Oh, goodness. I seem to recall he's the second to last, though, so whatever goes on in his, in terms of story order. So whatever happens in his route, it's, likely to be quite plot relevant. I wonder if they'll all break the curse without us really getting the full story of the dangers in the palace and such, but... Well, we'll see. Lucette, thinking to herself. To make matters worse, he went and disappeared. I have not heard anyone mention his name here for a very long time. Lucette, shocked. I am forcibly pulled from my thoughts when I collide with someone. The linens I had been holding scatter over the floor. Lucette. Excuse me, I did not... I look up and my voice trails off when I see who I bumped into. This guy's shady as well. Mithros. Lost in your thoughts? Sir Mithros looks at me, something veiled in his smiling eyes. Out loud. I suppose those are the linens the Queen asked for. I'm very suspicious of this guy, but, like, it could all be a red herring, and it turns out he'll actually have been totally fine the whole time, but he is the most obviously suspicious person here. Sorry. I also find it suspicious that he has these... The diamond shape that is, like, the core to this game. Prominently displayed. I think that's supposed to be the shape of, like, the Tenebrarum and the fairy crystal, whatever it is called, that I have definitely forgotten. Many things about him are suspicious. I mean, maybe he's actually a fairy. I don't know. Like, there's nothing to say that only witches have have infiltrated the palace. Anyway. Lucette. Yes, please excuse me. I begin gathering up the linens, but as I reach out for one, Sir Mithros picks it up first. Mithros. Allow me to help you. Lucette. I will be fine. Mithros. But this was partially my fault. Let me assist you. I bite my lip and do not protest as Sir Mithros helps me gather the rest of the linens. I am contemplating my schedule for the rest of the day when I realize that Sir Mithros has been talking. Mithros. I don't suppose you have any idea on who that maid is. Lucette. Maid? There is a cold amusement in Sir Mithros' gaze. Mithros. Surely you've heard the rumor of the young prince having been seen with a royal maid somewhere around town. Oh, yep. Story of her, the prince intervening between her and the noblewoman, getting around. That makes sense. Mithros. Rumor has it that Prince Rod has found love among the common folk, much like his royal stepfather has. Lucette, thinking to herself, Rod with a maid? As far as I'm aware, the only maid he has been out in town with has been... Yep, you. I freeze as Sir Mithros straightens, patting down his clothes for dust before holding out some of the linens to me. Mithros. If it is true, I wish him the best, though I wish he would be more discreet about it. A royal scandal is the last thing we need right now. I shakily take the linens from Sir Mithros as he inclines his head to me. Mithros. Have a good day, Lucette. There's definitely something suspicious about him. I mean, it could be a red herring and he could actually not be a bad guy, but he feels like a bad guy. I walk to the dining hall in a haze, my mind whirling with the implications of what Sir Mithros just said. On the other hand, maybe he is a good guy and he shifts it. I don't know. We'll find out. Lucette, thinking to herself, I am sure it was those noble women who spread this rumor. Ophelia. Ah, Lucette, thank you for bringing these to me. Just leave them on the table. I curtsy after placing the linens down as commanded. Lucette. If that is all... Ophelia. Lucette. I straighten at the tone of Ophelia's voice. When I look up, I see that her expression is carefully still. Ophelia. I am about to ask you something that you might not want to answer, but I very much hope you will. Lucette. I will answer if I can. Ophelia. Good. Ophelia sighs as she sits down on one of the dining table chairs and folds her hands on her lap. Ophelia, out loud. I've been trying to ignore it since palace gossip is mostly false, but I can't help my curiosity. I wanted to ask about your relationship with my son. Lucette. What? Ophelia. I understand you and Rod were out together in town a few days ago. Do you want to tell me what happened? Oh goodness. And whether to tell Ophelia is a choice? Now, this is also an interesting question because Lucette will definitely be like, at best we are friends, and barely at that. She will definitely not be self-aware about the fact that they have this burgeoning romance going on, and I don't know, like, explaining the situation and dismissing the gossip feel like fairly equal options to me right now, because I think the way Lucette will explain the situation is, we just happened to run into each other in town, which is true. Dismissing the gossip would be, no, there's nothing between us, which would be basically the same thing. I'm inclined to be honest with Ophelia and, like, tell her, like, I assume explain the situation will just be like, ah, yes, this thing happened and we ran into each other in town, and... Alright, I'm gonna err on the side of explaining the situation. Apparently first I'm gonna sneeze. Whew. I don't know where that came from, but... I do have a bit of a dust allergy, so... I sometimes just sneeze out of nowhere. space heater also. Alright, sorry. So, I've done the save. Yep. Confirm. I'm gonna try explaining the situation, because I value... when in doubt, be honest. Lucette, thinking to herself. If Ophelia is asking me about these rumors, then I can only imagine what sort of story those women made up. Lucette, out loud. Prince Rod was just on his way somewhere when he chanced upon me. When he saw that I was in trouble with two noblewomen, he stopped to intervene. That is all. Ophelia. Rod said the same thing. Lucette. Then why did you ask me, Your Majesty? Ophelia. To see what you thought about the situation. I don't think anyone should get a say in what your relationship with Rod is. I mean, except for Rod, presumably, but I think she means... I assume she means I want my son to be happy, and no one but you and him should get a say in the relationship. Lucette, thinking to herself, my relationship with Rod? Yes, correct choice. I felt like it was probably the correct choice, and I'm glad I was right. Ophelia. I like you, Lucette, and I'm certain that you're good for Rod. If I had my way, I would let him court you. Lucette, shocked, and also very blushy. Oh man, Lucette doesn't blush very often, so this is very good, very cute, and I like it. I feel heat in my cheeks as I trip over my words. Lucette, the prince and I are not in a relationship. A member of the royal family cannot end up with a servant. Ophelia, where there's love, there's hope. Social status shouldn't stop you from becoming happy, Lucette. Lucette, thinking to herself, then what about the fact I am Rod's stepsister? Yeah, alright, see, that is kind of a problem I don't really know how to deal with. I mean, I don't really want the answer to be, and then Ophelia and the king get divorced because it turns out they don't actually love each other, because that would be depressing, but... It is a bit awkward to be like, well, we are not, like, although I do feel we're not related, we didn't grow up together, are very important factors, there is going to be the social stigma of, well, your father is married to my mother, and vice versa. So, well, I look forward to seeing how the game is going to choose to handle that. I bite down on that statement fiercely. I already know what role I am playing here. I cannot break it. Ophelia looks at me with a complicated expression before she sighs. Ophelia, I will not push you on this any further. But be careful, Lucette. Your closeness with my son and daughter has not gone unnoticed. I do not believe in limiting relationships because of one's status, but... Lucette, I understand. I assume the fill-in for that but is, but be careful because other people do. I curtsy as I move towards the dining hall's entrance. Lucette, thinking to herself, what did Ophelia mean by that closeness not going unnoticed? Later that day, as I am waiting outside the throne room for Emmeline to finish one of her classes, two maids walk towards me and stop in front of me. Mayday. Lucette, isn't it? Lucette. What is it? I have already finished all of my tasks for the day. Maid B. Oh, I'm sure you have. Probably rushed through all of them so that you could hang around with the prince and princess tonight. Maid B. The head housekeeper's been giving you a lighter load so you can afford the time to play around, I blink at them, confused. Lucette. I have no idea what you're talking about. Maid B. Don't play dumb. All the servants know what you've been doing. Maid A. Just because you're Princess Emmeline's personal maid doesn't make you better than the rest of us. I'd be careful not to get too big for your boots, Lucette. This frustrates me. Like, what has Lucette done wrong? Nothing. In this case is the answer. In this, regarding this. Like, this is just very unfair. Anyway, Lucette. Are you threatening me? Mayday. What if we are? Voice. Then I'd be very disappointed in you. Yay, Emmeline to the rescue. Mayday. Shocked. Maid B. Princess Emmeline! Emmeline moves to stand beside me, a disapproving expression on her face. Emmeline, I did not expect such petty cruelty from the two of you. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Mayday. Your Highness. Rod. You really do have a talent for getting yourself into trouble. Lucette. Rod. You know, I worry a little bit that this in some ways won't help because, like, her being accused of special treatment because she's close to the prince and princess, and then both of them coming into her rescue is not gonna help those rumors. But might make people less likely to confront her about it for fear of getting in trouble, so there's that. Rod pauses briefly, his eyes meeting mine for a second, before he looks at the maids. Rod, don't you have better things to do than bully my sister's maid? Also, I just want to say I really appreciate when there was like, voice interjects, saving Lucette, and I automatically assumed it was going to be Rod, but I'm actually really happy that this time it was Emmeline first. She also has every right to come to Lucette's, to back up Lucette. Mayday. We apologize, Your Highness. We'll be on our way. The two maids run off. Emmeline turns to look at me. Emmeline, are you okay? I'm about to answer when I notice that Rod is abruptly walking away from us. I frown at his back. Lucette thinking to herself. He had only just started being nice to me, and now he's back to acting as if I do not exist. I mean, this is probably... I could totally see Rod being like, oh, I need to spend less time around her to protect her. Lucette thinking to herself. What did I do? Aww, Lucette. Emmeline puts her hands on my back and gently pushes me forward. Emmeline, you wanted to ask him something, right? I could see it in your eyes. Emmeline smiles as she pushes the door to the throne room open. Emmeline, I have a few more questions to ask my teacher. I'll be a while. Lucette, but she disappears into the throne room before I can finish. I glance down the hallway that Rod just disappeared down, then back at the throne room. My thoughts whirl together in a vague mess until I make my decision. Lucette, wait! At the sound of my approaching footsteps, Rod turns and looks at me. He scowls, but does not say anything. Alright, another choice. I am inclined to tell him off for his behavior. That seems a little bit more Lucette's angle, but we'll try it. We'll see how it goes. The words spill out of me before I can even think on them. Lucette, what have I done now to make you angry with me? Rod, nothing. He turns away and I glare as I follow closely behind him. Lucette, you expect me to believe that? You can at least look at me when I'm talking to you. I reach out a hand to his elbow and pull him back so that he is facing me. Lucette, Rod... But the words die in my throat when I see the expression on his face. His face is red, and he refuses to look me in the eye. My surprise causes me to release him. Yes, correct choice. Rod quickly turns around and begins to walk away. I feel like I've gotten better at estimating what is going to be the correct choice to get to the good ending as the story's gone on, so I'm happy about that. My surprise causes me to release him. Rod quickly turns around and begins to walk away. I am left to stare dumbly after him. Lucette, what is wrong with him? Normally he is not so afraid to speak his mind. I frown as I feel a dull ache throbbing somewhere deep in my chest. Lucette thinking to herself, what is this? Why do I feel sad? Normally Rod's distance does not make me feel like this. And yet now... Am I really so sad that he does not want to speak with me? Oh, Lucette. I mean, classic Cinderella. Difficulty being honest with others, difficulty being honest with oneself. I shake my head and take a deep breath to still my mind. Although I actually want to go back to that thought because, like, she's new to friendship. So relationship is going to be even more of a, like, romance is a bit of a higher bar for her, I think. I shake my head and take a deep breath to still my mind. Lucette, Silence. Thinking to herself. It is better not to think about it. Okay. Whew. This was a lot of fun. Alright, so, and that is the end of the chapter, so that will be the end for tonight. And I'm gonna go ahead and save, because... So we'll do my usual save there. And then return to the main menu, just because that music was a little hard to talk over. Great, so yeah, so that will be the stream for today. Thank you everyone who watched today, and anyone who was watching this later. I appreciate you all so much. As always, I'm going to be continuing. I'll be playing Chapter 8 next week, and I'm excited because that means I only have 3 more. So I've gotten it on a reliable account that there are 10 chapters to the story, which means that 3 more weeks to get to finish out Rot's Root, and I'm really excited. And then, like, of course, like I've said a few times, I'll go back around and then I'll start Kairos Route, and that will be exciting. And I'm really excited to see the conclusion, like, to see the rest of the story unfold and the conclusions to all of the exciting plots and everything. And I'm loving this game. I'm having so much fun playing it, and yeah, so I look forward. It's something I'm just really looking forward to continuing to play this week to week. So. And I hope that other people are enjoying it as well. And so again, thank you so much to anyone who's watching this live. Thank you so much to anyone who's watching this later after the fact. I appreciate you all so much. I hope you will consider maybe following me or subscribing or what have you. But even if you don't, I appreciate you just for being here. Thank you so much. So outro thoughts. And by outro thoughts, I just mean, like, future streams. So yes, of course, I will be playing this again. I'll be playing Chapter 8 next week. Same time, same time, same place. And I've been trying to get the video up on YouTube within a week of me having played it, so I'll always make sure I get the previous video out before I play the next chapter, so. And those will... So, the spacing of those is going to be within a week-ish, but it won't be quite... my post to YouTube schedule is not quite as strict, because sometimes I need to go in and I need to add the description and do a little bit of editing and stuff, so... I've actually, and that's one thing which I hope is nice for anyone watching this on YouTube, I've started actually cutting the stream starting soon screen short so that you can just jump in, because I realized... there's an easy way, YouTube has an easy way to do that, and it was very silly of me to have not been doing that, so apologies to anyone who has had the experience of having to, like, skip through the stream starting soon screen. You should not have to do that anymore in the future. Yeah, so again, next stream of this, next week, next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and my next stream other than that will not be till this, or will be this Friday, so I think I set that also for 4 p.m. Eastern time, so my next stream in general will be next Friday, and I will be playing my modded Minecraft solo world again, and then probably after that it'll just be right back to the Monday stream of this game, so yeah. And again, thank you so much. I appreciate you all so much, and bye!